Hey, Tom. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
Hey, Liz, great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you too. And everyone else, thanks for joining us and welcome to another episode of Plain Speak. Today, I am super excited to have Tom Luther, Director of CX Advisory and Partnerships at Outsource Consultants, joining us. Tom brings over 16 years of experience in customer experience, operations, and relationship management, having worked in some of the biggest names in the industry. His background that we'll learn a little bit more about spans leadership roles at organizations like RDI Corporation, StarTech, and Vantiv, where he successfully drove operational improvements, enhanced client performance, and delivered key customer service strategies. At Outsource Consultants today, Tom leads the charge in matching businesses with the ideal BPO partners from a database of over 500 top-performing providers across the globe. With his blend of operational know-how and strategic vision, Tom today helps organizations not just cut costs, but also improve service quality through smart outsourcing choices and navigating all the new automations and software solutions that we're seeing today. So in today's session, we'll be diving into what customer service leaders should consider when outsourcing, how they should be evaluating their partnerships, and all the new shiny AI and automation tools that BPOs must offer to stay competitive. I'm super excited because Tom's knowledge and hands-on experience in the BPO and customer service world make you, Tom, the perfect guest to guide us through this conversation in 2024. So, Tom, thank you again so much for being here. Before we start diving into call centers and AI, tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are in this point in your career. Why customer support?
Yeah, great question. So I started in call center right out of college. I was very fortunate. Didn't go to college to jump into contact center, but I was offered a very unique opportunity in a leadership program with General Electric in their operations and collections leadership program, and spent 7 years with GE learning the ins and outs of customer care, risk collection strategy, and I kind of got hooked. Right.
Yeah.
It's the cool thing about contact center is no day feels the same. There's different challenges, different customers, different problems to solve. And after I spent some time doing that, I decided, hey, look, there's this world of outsourcing where I can work with very different kinds of brands every day in different industries and not necessarily be hooked into financial services, but I could, spread my wings over many different types of industries each day. And for a guy like me, that got me hooked. And, fast forward 20 years now, I've been very fortunate to work with some wonderful in-house brands, some wonderful third-party BPOs, and spent a lot of time in digital transformation. So I feel perfectly equipped to sit right in the middle of the labor and technology conversation we're about to have. And
Yep.
Again, thanks for having me.
No, must have been quite a journey watching all those transformations from both sides of the divide, and must have been sort of drinking from the fire hose and learning a ton from that BPO side. So excited to have you share some of that. One last question before we jump in here. I'm guessing a lot of the business leaders who are listening, they understand what it's like to be a leader in-house. They understand what it's like or the role that a BPO plays. But Tom, in your current role today, tell me a little bit about, what a day in the life of Tom as a BPO consultant and advisor is. What does that mean and what does that role look like to you?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, I'll tackle your question, I think, in two parts. I mean, day to day, Outsource Consultants, for those that aren't aware, we are the world's largest agnostic contact center advisory firm. So for brands of all shapes and sizes, Liz, that are looking to outsource, they have a staffing need, maybe they need cost reduction, so they're looking at outsourcing. We take the guessing out of the game for them. And typically, procurement will lead an RFI, RFP, and go kind of blindly look at who some of the leaders in the space are. And they may or may not make the right decision. Oftentimes they don't. And a year later, they regret that decision. We take the guessing out of that, right? We bring 12 years and hundreds of BPOs of experience all over the globe. And we lead a completely agnostic search process where we will introduce them to typically 5 to 10 perfect fits based on geo, based on industry niche, based on cost. And we do that completely free. So we produce, our requirements document that is completely free in nature with the complementary business case to say, look, here's where you're at today. Here's where you would be with partner A, B, C, and D. and we guide that introductions, we guard those meetings, and ultimately lead them to hopefully a commercial selection that they can feel good about, and knowing that they did the true due diligence with an industry expert like OC. That's on the labor side. On the technical side, and we'll talk a little bit about this here, brands are coming to us more than ever looking for not only our labor guidance, but our guidance around technology and strategy and how to deploy the technology. Should I pass the labor and the tech to an outsourcer, or should I keep the tech in-house and just move off some of my labor? So there's a very unique marriage that has to happen. And we'll talk a little bit about that, I think, as we go today.
Absolutely. Literally some $1 million questions there that I think a lot of people are trying to answer, right? So it sounds like you're bringing both the breadth and the depth, right? Because I think for most leaders, it would be impossible to go and canvas those hundreds and hundreds of providers, but you guys bring all of that knowledge and connection in-house. Okay, which makes you, I think, Tom, the perfect person to help us get into the heads of both your contact center leaders as well as your BPOs and tech leaders a little bit. And so when you think about everything you've heard over the last maybe year or two, what is keeping today's contact center leader up at night? What's top of mind?
When I rewind to 2004 to now 2024, I will tell you the answer is still the same, and it's the human. We'll certainly get into the technology here in a moment, but simply put, it is still attrition. Leaders are struggling with how to manage the marriage between labor and technology. Liz, I hate to say it, but labor has never been harder to come by. I don't know if it's generational. When I was coming into this industry, people looked at the contact center as a great first starting job. Whether you went to college or didn't go to college, it was going to give you the influencing skills. It was going to teach you conversational skills. It was a good professional starter job.
Right.
I have a 23-year-old, and I will tell you, she wanted nothing to do with ever calling a call center, let alone working in a call center. So it definitely is generational that today's contact center still is heavily voice driven, at least at the majority of brands, and folks don't want to sign up for it. They don't want to deal with the stress. They don't want to deal with the long hours, the demanding metrics. And we could go on and on about that, but it is a very transient labor force right now. And so your contact center leader, both of the BPOs, but mainly the brands, are saying, okay, we've given pay raises. We've allowed people to work from home. Maybe we've added some childcare, whatever it may be. We just can't find and retain. And if we do find, we certainly can't retain. And some of the audience may know this, but contact center attrition is 3 times greater than the average of all of the other leading occupations in the US. That's a glaring stat. Not 1 time, not 2 times, 3 times. It's in terms of the average percent year over year. So you're losing 50 to 60% of your staff year over year. So not only all the dollars associated with marketing and recruiting and hiring, but you're losing all that tribal knowledge and experience every year. So that's what's keeping them up at night, saying, how do I continue to hit metrics and meet my fiscal goals my boss is asking me to do and my demanding CX metrics when I'm starting over constantly? So that to me is what keeps them up more than anything.
And one of the, not only is it really high attrition, like you just said, but it's one of the largest workforce populations in the US still, right? Despite all of the, maybe people aren't excited to go into it. Right. Okay, so if that is still top of mind and no one's really solved it, what do you tell that contact center leader, Tom? How do you sort of provide some framework to think about and start to tackle that now that you've done the low-hanging fruit, like working from home and childcare? What do you guide that contact center leader through?
The guidance is, I think, a perfect play into what we do. At some point, I think the most mature operational leaders certainly exhaust all options, right? And many of them have over the years, like we said, the pay raises, the work from home, the other fringe benefits that they've provided. The reality is, at some point, you have to diversify your strategy, not just from a geo redundancy perspective and a security perspective and an outage perspective, but let's take a step back a little bit. Outsourcing sometimes has a bad connotation, right? I've outsourced in the past. We didn't do our diligence. It was a bad experience. Let's pull the work back home. When you ask those brands, did you work with an agnostic advisory firm like an Outsource Consultants? The answer is always no. right? So they went and made the decision. So there's some natural apprehension there and trusting again. And our process, again, why we offer free consulting is, look, allow us to give you the answers to the test and do your homework for you. We'll give you the complementary matrix. We'll give you the supporting financial model. And then you make the decision when you're ready. There's no pressure here. But the ready is going to come really quickly because they know in the back of their head, okay, we've tried this, we've tried this, we've tried this. We habitually are, let's call it 15 to 50 agents below where we need to be from a service level perspective. Okay, let's try an outsourcing. And again, ultimately, you're going to see much stronger retention. You're going to see likely a cheaper hourly rate. You're going to offer that geo redundancy, right? A lot of these people could be onshore. They certainly could be nearshore or offshore. So you're improving yourself from a risk perspective in that. Most importantly, you're lessening the cost on the organization, which allows your cost center, right? That's what they're referred to on the internal side, because they're not typically generating revenue. They are a burden on the P&L. So you don't have to twist the CFO's arm to say, look, allow us to go to a more stable situation. By the way, it's going to save us money. It's going to improve CX. It's going to improve our service levels, right? If we outsource this, and ultimately create a budget potentially of savings for the organization to spend on strategic initiatives.
Fascinating. So it's a really methodical, here's what the issue is, right? Here's the understaffing, here's whatever it is. And then here's the exact KPIs that we're going to expect to test against as we roll out these different maybe geos or alternative outsourcing solutions. Is that sort of what I'm hearing, Tom?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's there is no perfect solution, but what I would tell people is it's time to trust again. It's time to trust the process. It's amazing to look at how the length of a BPO relationship when your procurement and legal team make the selection on their own versus when you go through a third-party trusted advisor. It's about half, right? They might make it 12 to 18 months going on their own. Our standard relationships are going much longer than that. Again, I think it gets down into really knowing the market, knowing who has vast. That's another thing I'll stop real quick and pivot on. I don't think people understand the amount of worldwide powerhouse brands that are outsourcing already. No, they don't outsource. Yeah, they do. Well, that guy doesn't outsource. Absolutely outsource about all of their work. So we have those conversations and open those eyes all the time. And it gives people, I think, faith that it can certainly true up my labor and it can certainly help my fiscal picture and ultimately drive better CX. Maybe I should look into this a little bit more.
Definitely. And, it's, I think, until Optimus Robot is really ready to take over everything, right? In a lot of ways, there's no magic bullet, right? But I'd love to double click on something you just said, Tom, which is, if you're just going out all on your own, you might have an average length of relationship of 12 to 18 months, which is crazy because it takes you 6 months just to really get ramped and stable and, make up those initial onboarding costs. And when you go through a trusted third-party advisor, they can be much longer relationships. If you had to sort of boil that down a little bit, where do you think that's coming from? Is it just the ability to canvas a much broader selection of different BPOs and partners? Or is it sort of knowing what to look for? What's sort of if you had to sort of crystallize that advantage, what does it come down to?
I would say it comes down to our relationship with these BPOs. I mean, like I said, over the course of 12 years, we've built relationship with hundreds and hundreds of BPOs where we physically will visit them. We have placed work with them before. We have watched them walk the walk, right? They certainly all do a great job talking the talk in the sales process, but it's another to go and deliver. And we stay around day two, Liz, which I think is very different at a pro bono rate, right? We will offer someone with a background like mine that stays on. They act as an intermediary between the brand and the BPO. If they'll have them, of course, we don't shove ourselves in there, but we offer it free, and we will offer MBRs, QBRs, et cetera, and we can hold both sides accountable. So again, we're bringing very real working BPOs that we've seen walk the walk to a short list. And then as we're going through presentations, we are constantly educating our brands on, here's what we think these guys do really well. These guys actually offer this technology that goes along with the journey you told me about, Mr. Customer. And we really educate them. Our job is to not influence. Our job is to educate them deeply on, here's who we've placed with them before. Sometimes the answer is none, but often not the case. Here's where they're at fiscally. This can help reduce your spend by 12%. You told me you needed to shave 8% off per the 2025 budget ask. Good, we're going to get you there. Oh, by the way, they deal with your 5 largest competitors today, so they have industry experience.
Yep.
We've placed these 8 with them before. Your procurement and legal department, to your question, they don't have that insight.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to go out and they might call a friend and say, hey, have you heard of X, Y, and Z BPO? Yeah, we heard of them and they did a fine job for us. Okay, great. We'll go with them. That's literally how it happens. And if, once the commercials, negotiations, are complete, typically it's pretty downhill. Yeah, we like them. We went with them. But then you show them like, look, these are the 8 that we could have given you, and look at their client lists. They're like, man, we really should have went and did our homework. So I would say it comes down to being intimate with our BPO providers, because if you think about their job list, they're constantly keeping us updated. We went out and bought this technology. We went out and we brought this training simulation software. We went out and bought accent neutralization. All things that will differentiate themselves in the marketplace. Your average procurement legal guy and gal, they don't know that, right? So it's that getting to know these guys intimately and really breaking down the best matches possible.
Yeah. And I feel like that relationship actually strikes me as a great alignment of incentives, right? Because it's not just getting the deal and sort of matching up both sides. It's that investment in the success, both from your perspective and the BPO's perspective, and the ability to go out and win, sounds like, future business together to some extent.
Absolutely.
Fascinating. Okay. So I do want to make sure we talk a little bit about the tech side of things that you've hinted at a lot already,
Sure.
Tom, because, you started this by saying, over 20 years, the trappings, the tech, everything's changed, but the human is still very much at the center of the contact center leader's mind, right? And you mentioned a lot of things now where you'll talk to new providers, or you'll talk to BPOs who have new technologies and new maybe solutions and tools that they're bringing on here, which makes sense. In 2024, I think it's all the rage, right? You're talking about conversational AI, there are chatbots, people are still talking about RPA, you've got new analytics tools, you've got sentiment analysis, you've got accent neutralization. Where does the contact center leader sort of start? Where do you start? And then how do you have to think about the investment of not just starting, you never just implement something and let it go? What does success look like?
Man,
and what lies with the BPO? What lies with the leader?
That's a great question. Here's a hot take that I'll share off the bat. The VP or SVP, even COO, sometimes are not given enough respect when it comes to the customer journey. What we're seeing more than anything is product is working directly with IT and technology and making these decisions with the organizations. Hey, this is the right thing for our customer. These are the right contact center mediums to offer them. This is going to generate more sales and better CX. But who are they not asking? They're not asking the men and women that have to deal with it every day. They're not asking the contact center leaders or the agents. Those agents have invaluable feedback about what has worked, what they've seen work in the past, where customers are frustrated, because the goal of the contact center really should be, how do we provide a medium to meet the customer where they want to be met, when they want to meet, and through the medium of their choice, truly 24/7. If I want social, that's what I'll do. If I want to chat, that's what I'll do. If I really want to call, that's what I want to do. That should be the goal. But I'm here to tell you that there's not a lot of alignment right now between product and sales and IT and technology. And they often forget about the lowly man, the call center, which to me, that should be flipped on its head. Our most valuable resource in the pyramid is the customer. So why do we not involve those men and women? So it's amazing that they're said, we need you to drive all these goals, Mr. or Mrs. CX call center leader, but we're not going to necessarily involve you in the decisions. It's going to hit your P&L, so you really have no say in this. You're already bleeding out on staffing. We're going to throw more things onto your plate. So I think for me, the intelligent organizations right now are helping their contact center leaders figure out what is a realistic cost reduction for 2025, because that has to happen. It's happening across every organization, unknown economy, et cetera. And then how not to drown with all of the shiny objects that are in front of them.
Yep. Yeah, it's been a weird reversal, right? I think over the last 2 years, where 5-10 years ago, customer service was not a sexy space for IT to want to get involved in. They were not interested in scoping the new CRM or figuring out whatever, right? Whereas over the last 2 years, there has been that excitement that you mentioned, which is a lot of IT and product leaders are now very excited to help out and scope implementation. Where can we do automation? Where can we loop in generative AI? And I think it's a really good point, Tom, that they sometimes forget about the people who have to not just use that technology every day, but also deal with the fallout when the customer doesn't like the technology that's now been put in front of them.
One other stat I'll share that I think is interesting that I saw the other day is we're at a borderline burnout stage right now on contact center technology. So many cool things, yes, but so many brands shoving it down your throat, yes. And people are just getting burnt out right now. And the ROIs are hard to prove near term. That's we can talk about value engineering. We can talk about, look, if you deploy, you'll be able to reduce headcount by X over the course of this waterfall. It's hard to prove. The dominoes have to fall. That's tight coordination between product, marketing, operations, and most importantly is customer adoption. You can predict what that's going to be.
Yep.
The customer, doesn't use the tool, we won't see the return on investment. And it's very overwhelming right now. And so much so, I saw 140,000 contact center technology jobs have been eliminated in 2024 globally. Huge number. So that tells me it's oversaturated right now. There are way too many bells and whistles. Now that said, if I'm a leader more than ever, I'm saying, do I have a solution for everything in my organization? Do I have a best in breed recruiting and hiring AI technology? Do I have a best in breed training AI simulation to get my people trained faster and into production faster? Right? Working on ways to embed technology to drive efficiency and thus cost reduction into the organization without overwhelming your agents. So, but at the end of the day, the ROI in some of the hard technologies is extremely hard to prove out, Liz. And I think that's leading to some strain in the across the organization.
That makes sense. A lot of these are big ticket software purchases, right? So how do you cascade that down? Because it does feel like we're in this sort of transition period where like the dream, right? The dream that I think the industry has always talked to some extent is turning that cost center into more of like part of the customer journey, more of a profit or retention center, right? But the reality is these have really historically still been pretty far apart to some extent. And so when you think about that ROI, that especially ones that are hard to prove in sort of near term, right? Where does a CX leader start? How do they sort of build that mental model? Is it labor reduction? Is it deflection? How do you, when you talk a CX leader through that, how do they start to think about it?
Yeah, a few things we've established, I think, in this conversation. We have a very real continuous attrition problem.
Yep.
The technology landscape is confusing. There isn't clear alignment across all of the organization on the customer journey and the technology to support that. So a very real popular thing that we're seeing at Outsource Consultants right now as we talk to more and more CFOs are, look, we've given the call center a chance to fix their staffing. We've kind of had it. We are telling them that we need to diversify our technology, but we don't necessarily have the budget to do so. Yep. And so we're coming in and saying, look, a really unique way to true up your staffing is through outsourcing, right? Again, that's kind of where our bread and butter is, to say, look, let's take these 50 agents that you habitually can't backfill, and let's pass them to either one or two BPO providers and take the very real savings month over month compared to what we were spending internally. And let's turn around and save you, $500,000 next year on your labor spend. Now we have what we call BYOB. We have created, we've helped them bring their own budget to this situation. So we've screwed up staffing, we've improved CX, and we've freed up cash for that CX leader to go back to the board now and say, hey guys, been putting a lot of pressure on us. We fixed A, B, and oh, by the way, we freed up $250,000 now. We would love to go buy this technology. Right. So we didn't have to leverage that from IT and technology. We have created our own budget to help the business in trying times drive CX to the next level. That to me is the magic equation. The labor side, you're going to true up to free up the tech purchase and ultimately drive your supreme CX. So that's the message that we're hearing, and every CFO right now that I've seen has a big smile on his or her face, because they're like, you fix labor and you fix my technology gap. Absolutely. Let's do this. So it's been very popular as we head into 2025.
I bet, but yeah, the economy being a bit uncertain. Now, to double click on that though, Tom, right? So you've trued up labor, you've created budget. How do you think, or how do you want CX leaders to think and CFOs to think about the trade-off of, do I take those savings now or do I reinvest those savings, right, in that technology to create that supreme CX? What sort of, maybe, I know it's all very situational, but top line guidance on that, is it to invest now or take the savings now and see where tech goes in the next 12 months and then reinvest?
I think you nailed it. I think it's case by case. I mean, my guidance would be to ask that first question, because again, I hear it every time. I'm working with a few customers recently, and it's amazing how there's alignment at some and not alignment at others on what does the journey look like. And the question I always ask, Liz, and I think one for our listeners to really go back to their organizations with is, can you define what your 1 to 3 year CX journey looks like? And when you ask that question, it sounds like a very simple one. You get a lot of blank stares. No, not really. We've talked about this, or we've alluded to we might do that. It tells me they don't have true alignment. So it's getting your powers that be across the various organization to have a true conversation. Where are we wanting our journey to go over the next 36 months? What's a short-term investment and what is a wait and see investment? So to your point, I think it's a little bit of both, because I think things are going to change. AI is certainly here to stay. We don't view it as a true labor replacement. We view it as a support to the labor, right? And to really drive very unique engagements from our perspective. But yeah, it starts with alignment. If I had to distill your question down to one thing, if you have that alignment and you have a clear journey, you'll be able to make that easy decision of spend now or invest and wait.
Yeah, you have to have a clear picture of what you're trying to do, and then you can think about how you do the right things with the right resources, whether that's new software or whether that's the right people in the right places and the right centers. Fascinating. So Tom, maybe some parting words from you here. If you think back across, we've talked about labor, we've talked about joining that and finding the synergies with labor and software. Are there any top-level recommendations that you think in 2024, going to 25, people should either really be thinking about, or sort of low-hanging fruit where it's like, hey, if you're not today thinking about X, Y, and Z already, you should really think through and think about implementing these things?
Yeah, I would say don't fly alone, right? There are so many great thought leaders in the industry. We certainly believe we're one of those. And again, I can't say it enough. It's free to have a conversation. It's free with us to view a model and a fiscal model and meet and see your recommendations, because why wouldn't you want a free answers to the test? You can walk, it's 2025 budget planning season at most organizations. You could walk very confidently into the boardroom and say, look, we've tried really hard the past 3 years, pay raises, work from homes, etc. We think the prudent thing would be, let's take a portion of this, outsource it. Guys, we're going to save X that we potentially could invest in Y next year. That shows a great deal of thought. That shows a leader that understands the marriage between labor and technology and how they're trying to better the organization. And again, with completely free advisory, I don't know why you wouldn't. So, for all those out there listening, it's absolutely worth the conversation to get some answers. And whether we have a relationship or not, that's okay. We've been able to help you go back to your organization and make your thoughts look very complete and actionable for 2025.
Makes sense. Tom, thank you so much. And everyone who joined us, you heard him. Why wouldn't you want to get some information? And so if you're interested in talking more about your CX journey, especially against the backdrop of tight labor, automation, AI in 2024, please reach out to Tom Luther on his LinkedIn profile. We'll post it underneath this video later. And Tom, thank you again so much for joining us for a brief 30-minute foray into CX advisory.
This was great, Liz. Thanks for having me.